What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, Nintendo shared their financial results for Q2 of the current fiscal year, and they had some interesting data points in there, as well as a bit of a change to the Switch forecast for the next 6 months. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about something else that came out of the financial results, specifically around the idea of price changes for the Switch, and that had the internet reacting in a couple of different ways. And we're also going to be talking about some new reports around another live service game that Sony could be working on, this one being an MMORPG for one of their more popular franchises. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with EA and unfortunately an intellectual property and franchise that has been canceled. We can see this posted up over on gamesindustry.biz. EA dropping Project Cars, firm to stop further development and investment in the series, staff affected to be moved to other EA roles wherever possible. Now, EA ended up with Slightly Mad Studios and the Project Cars intellectual property after they had purchased Codemasters, who acquired Slightly Mad Studios before all of that went down. And I guess if you look at EA and all of the racing games that they currently have, they're probably gonna have to look around and pick and choose which ones they want to continue investing in. And I guess Project Cars was at the bottom of the list. What else they have? They're like WRC, obviously Need for Speed, Grid, Dirt, which apparently Dirt is going through a bit of a reboot and renaming and stuff. So it sounds like they were looking around at some of their racing IPs and just decided what they were going to keep going forward and what was going to kind of be left behind. And unfortunately, it's Project Cars in this case. I did like Project Cars 3. I feel like 2, I think I like that better, but 3 I thought was fine for what it was, and unfortunately it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing a 4th one. Also, we did have an interesting joint venture that was announced between Nintendo and DeNA. We can see this posted up as part of their investors report in a PDF. Notice of establishment of joint venture company with DeNA. We can see them saying, as part of this effort, Nintendo entered a business and capital alliance with DeNA in 2015 and has collaborated to develop and operate new core system centered around Nintendo account since then. They say with the integrated hardware-software model at the core of its business, Nintendo also strives to provide enhanced experience and service outside of its dedicated gaming system. In order to provide this experience in a holistic manner, Nintendo is working to maintain and expand its relationship with consumers primarily through Nintendo account. Now, DeNA has worked with Nintendo on several of their mobile outings. Think of Fire Emblem, Animal Crossing, Mario Kart. So they're very aware and they're very good at developing for the mobile platform, which makes me think that Nintendo has big plans for their Nintendo account system going forward, specifically into their next generation or next offering for the Switch. We've seen this before where they showed investors slides that pointed out that the Nintendo account system would essentially transcend and really bridge the gap between generations. Basically, your Nintendo account system now will follow you to the next system, which is what we kind of expect as it is, and Nintendo's just kind of working this out. But remember, they also have other things they're doing outside of, as they say, their dedicated gaming business, where they maybe have things tie into their new movie. I don't know, maybe there's something you get promotional when you go to see it in theaters. Maybe it has to do with their theme park, and I'm sure other aspects of their business that they will probably continue to surprise us with. But yeah, that Nintendo account system seems like it's pretty important to Nintendo to even come up with a joint venture here with DeNA to further that. Oh, and we had a bit of a strange response from Ubisoft when it came to that Prince of Persia remake, which seems like it's gone through all kinds of issues in development, but this was just kind of randomly posted up online from Ubisoft and the official Prince of Persia account, where it says, state of the game, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is not canceled. The game is currently in development at Ubisoft Montreal. I think the reason they put this out is because of what was going on with pre-orders, where they were being canceled. They say since the game currently does not have a release date, existing pre-orders have been canceled and refunded where applicable. Pre-orders may reopen once a new release date for the game has been announced. They also say that there are no plans for any other remakes in the Prince of Persia series, which is weird that we're getting ahead of the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake with everything that's going on there. So hey, good news, it's not been canceled. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo's financial report, that being for Q2 of this current fiscal year. That covers July, August, end September. First, let's start with the Switch and where its hardware numbers are currently after the update. We can see this over on Nintendo's investor relations page. 114.33 million units have now sold. They managed to move another 3.25 million systems in quarter 2. We can also see their software, 917.59 million units. This is big all the way around because the hardware is 3 or 4 million units or so, I believe, away from passing the PlayStation 4, and it's also coming up on the Game Boy. So after that, it's onward to the DS and the PS2, if I'm not mistaken there, so it could move right into third place, potentially by the end of this year. The software also working its way towards that 1 billion mark, which is something that Nintendo has never been able to do with a system. Looks like the Switch is probably going to hit that goal as well. A quick look at the software where Nintendo will list their top selling titles, and it really hasn't moved much. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it's still rolling along. It's sold like 1.5 million copies this past quarter. It just needs to stop selling, because if it doesn't, we're just never getting another Mario Kart game, so here's hoping for some reason the sales fall off a cliff, but it's part of the Black Friday sale for Nintendo, so I assume it won't. Animal Crossing New Horizons, though, over 40 million units have sold, and from there you can see the list as we scroll down with Smash Bros. Ultimate, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Keep in mind, I think Scarlet and Violet will eclipse Sword and Shield, so if that's at 25.37 million, I mean, look out for the best-selling Pokemon game. Super Mario Odyssey, then we have Super Mario Party, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Ring Fit Adventure, and they finish up with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Along with those updates, they did have an entire investor relation packet that they sent out with some interesting facts and data points in there. I went ahead and grabbed a few of them and put them down here. For example, the hardware sales. Those are actually down 19.2% so far this fiscal year, because remember, we're halfway through the fiscal year as it will end March 2023. But, I mean, the sales being down for the hardware is notable here, and their forecast, which we'll get to soon, also being scaled back a bit. Software sales, however, are up 1.5%. That's good. That is the profitable side of the business for Nintendo. Digital sales accounted for 51% of total software sales. This has been fluctuating back and forth from like the mid 40s up until above 50%. So even Nintendo seeing that kind of digital crunch, that all digital future maybe on the horizon. We'll see there. Splatoon 3, of course, this launched during this past quarter. 7.9 million units sold. That is absolutely ridiculous if you consider this counts about 3 weeks. Remember, this launched, what, the second week or so in September? This report runs till the end of September, so like the 30th. Absolutely ridiculous. 7.9 million sold, and it's going into the holidays. The momentum, I assume, will just continue on. Kirby Forgotten Land, 5.27 million. I had to note this one because it is now the best-selling Kirby game, and hey, it's a really, really good game, so I'm glad to see that one topping the list there. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, this also launched during this fiscal quarter. Remember, it came out in July, so, I mean, it's right at the end of July. Really, it just had August and September to sell. 1.72 million copies sold. In the world of Xenoblade and Monolith Soft, that's very good. It's the fastest selling Xenoblade game ever made. That said, I will be curious to see how things go with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 going forward. Will it have a long tail of sales, or will it completely fizzle out? Because if it doesn't necessarily beat Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or anything like that in terms of best-selling Xenoblade by a healthy margin, maybe it's time for Monolith Soft to look towards a new intellectual property they can rebuild or build from the ground up and see how that does. Then the forecast that I had mentioned. It's been scaled back from 21 million Switch systems to 19 million. On page 8 of the report that they released, they said for Nintendo Switch hardware, they reduced their forecast by 2 million units to the 19 million unit mark. While there is a gradual improvement in semiconductor and other component supplies and a recovery trend in hardware manufacturing for Nintendo Switch, taking into consideration production and sales performances thus far, we have modified the Nintendo Switch hardware sales units forecast for the fiscal year by continually working to front-load production and selecting appropriate transportation methods in preparation for the holiday season. We'll continue to deliver as many Nintendo Switch systems as possible to consumers around the world. So Nintendo is still referencing the overall semiconductor shortage, and yeah, that's still a thing, but it is clearing up for the most part right now, as we are seeing Sony work to push out a ton of PS5 systems. Microsoft seems to be pushing out quite a few Xbox systems now, and we're even seeing some larger companies, think of like Apple, Samsung, and others, actually kind of cancel or work down their own orders, mostly because the demand isn't necessarily as high as it was just across the board when a lot of people were just inside with the pandemic. That said, I do believe in some regions Nintendo is kind of feeling the stock crunch right now. Specifically in Japan, there are a lot of accounts of there being complete sellouts for the Switch, being very difficult to get one. But in other regions, like for example in the US, seems pretty easy to get a Switch right now. I was at Best Buy the other day and they just had a bunch of Switch systems there. I go on Amazon right now, I can have one to my door tomorrow morning. So it's definitely dependent on where you are exactly in the world. But Nintendo, I think for the most part, is referencing the shortage to try to ease concerns when it comes to investors and what they probably see as hardware that needs a bit of a refresh because, look, investors always want the next big thing that can sell and make the company money. But we do have Pokemon right around the corner, and I'm sure that will work to spike Switch sales and obviously software sales, which they did not revise down. And that, again, is the big profit-making sector that they are obviously wanting to point out to investors. So, no, I don't think Nintendo's doomed or anything like that, but I do believe it's something to keep an eye on here as we go into the second half of this fiscal year. 2023. Will this finally be when Nintendo starts to take a look at the Switch and realize it's either time to move on or at least start talking about next generation or extend it further with some sort of revision? Next up, let's talk about Nintendo and apparently the Switch price. This comes up every time now, I'm going to say with investors, specifically with exchange rates and kind of where that's been trending over the last year. But we can see this posted up by Takashi Machizuki. Nintendo asked whether it would raise Switch prices, says it won't take such actions at this moment, but we'll continue monitoring situation and carefully consider whether we need to take the option. They kind of said the same thing before. I believe at the last investors report that they put out there, that was another question they were asked then. And I think they said almost the exact same thing. But what's weird is this got out there and it started to blow up online. People were asking, is Nintendo going to raise prices of the near 6-year-old Switch? My answer to that is probably no. If anything, they would work to introduce a more expensive model that they can sell at a higher price. Although, I guess that's what I thought of Sony, and they just said, nope, it's more expensive now. But it's a little different, I feel like, for Nintendo because they're revising their Switch sales down. Sony would like to push theirs further up if they could get more of them out there. So it's a bit of a different take here. Sony's kind of working up the left side of the bell curve. Nintendo's kind of working on the right side on the way down. So in their mind, it's probably not a great idea to raise prices. Instead, work towards a more expensive model, probably in the next year or so. Or who knows, they could work bundles together to get more expensive special editions. There are, I'm sure, all kinds of strings they can pull and weird things they can do in manufacturing to make something look more expensive than it really needs to be. But we'll see what Nintendo does. Like I said, they got to get through this holiday time with a brand new Pokemon game releasing, and we'll see what they have for us as we get 2023 started. Next up, let's talk about another one of those Sony live service games. And sounds like they're gonna be trying to push out a ton of these over the next 5 or 6 years. I heard like 10 of them or something. And I think we've started to already see some, like obviously Naughty Dog is working on that Factions live service game, but it seems that maybe they have plans for another franchise getting an entire MMORPG. We can see this posted up over on VGC. Sony and NCSoft have reportedly struck a deal to create a Horizon MMORPG. This is according to the news site MTN. The project will be developed by South Korean company behind the Lineage and Guild Wars MMO series. It's interesting. And target the global market as part of Sony's push into live service games. NCSoft is currently recruiting developers to work on the title, which is said to be listed as Project H in job ads. There you go. Anyone who keeps an eye on LinkedIn and stuff, I guess keep an eye out for Project H to see what they're hiring for. But we can see a statement from their global communication office where they say it is difficult to confirm information about unpublished projects that are currently under development, basically saying, stop asking us, you're going to get us in trouble with Sony. We're just trying to build out this Project H that may or may not be the Horizon MMORPG. And I gotta say, they're going all in with Horizon, which, I mean, it's sold well for them, and Horizon Forbidden West is a very good game, but we hear about them doing a remaster or remake of Horizon Zero Dawn. We hear about some sort of multiplayer that they're going to do, which I kind of think of as like the Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode, but maybe a little bit more. And then a full-blown MMORPG for the series, which it makes sense that Sony would also have live services that would be an MMORPG, because if you get it right, it really works. Look at Final Fantasy XIV, which is something that has worked to hold up Square in some of the roughest times for them when it comes to their financials. Final Fantasy XIV is just printing money constantly. So in Sony's mind, if they can get one of these live services to work like that, they'll be good, even if the other 8 or 9 fail, especially if it ends up being something based on one of their larger franchises like Horizon. And I wouldn't mind checking out an MMORPG based on the Horizon series, but I will say when it comes down to the MMORPGs, you really end up picking 1 or 2 because of how much time they require. But interesting stuff here. I think it's gonna be a while before we see this if they are still hiring and it just has a Project H in some of the job ads, but we'll keep an eye out for this one. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a bit of an update to a story from yesterday that has to do with AEW Fight Forever maybe going into Game Pass. This was based on reports from WrestleZone. Well, now we have an official response. We can see this posted up on Twitter from the AEW Games account. They say this also seems like a good time to share that we don't anticipate AEW Fight Forever being part of any monthly gaming subscription services. AEW Fight Forever will be available in store at your favorite retailers or online, and then you can reserve your copy there. This is, it's weird, I guess, to see them just come out and say, nope, we're not doing any of that. But if you think about it, they don't want people to not pre-order thinking that it's going to go into Game Pass. I mean, that's what, if you hear that a game is going into Game Pass, you don't necessarily run out and then pre-order that game. Even if there's a rumor, that might be enough, if it spreads enough anyway, to cause issues when it comes to sales ahead of its release, which I feel like we're kind of beyond the need to pre-order games anyway. The only time it might make sense is the day before, because you want to download a game that's 80 gigabytes or something in size. That's the nice part, is when there is preload available, which is just the case pretty much across the board now. That way you cut out the time of sitting there and watching a bar fill up on your screen. And if you have a slower connection, you can just leave it and let it download the entire day. And then when it ticks down to midnight, you can start playing. Otherwise, though, pre-ordering weeks or months in advance, it's just unnecessary at this point. They're not going to run out of digital copies on the PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo store. But there you have it. They're pushing back against the idea of AEW Fight Forever going into Game Pass. However, I guess that'd be up to THQ Nordic, though, as they're publishing that. I assume they're communicating well, but hey, I guess we'll see as we get closer to the eventual release, which, again, I guess sometime first half 2023, we'll see. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, is it hard to find a Nintendo Switch in your area at retail? Look at this, 96% said no. I can buy one right now in store or online. 4% said yes, they're sold out in store and online for me. Now, I went through some of the comments. Many people said, no, it's just readily available. I can go get it right now, or I can buy it online and it'll ship out to me in a day or two. However, a couple of people that I saw who said I can't get one are in Japan. So it seems like, yes, the demand in Japan specifically is higher than basically any other region. And for Nintendo, I mean, they're a Japanese-based company. Makes sense why they would be looking around saying, wow, there's not enough Switch systems out there. It's because they're legitimately not available much at all in Japan, as they keep selling out. And Pokemon coming out next week it's not really going to help the stock situation there much as demand is about to spike. But it's good to see it wasn't just me who was looking around like, wow, there's Switch systems all over the place. I don't really get it. It seems like that's the case for many regions out there based on the poll. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Grizz saying, everyone is gearing up for the holidays in high gear. I stopped at a Best Buy 2 days ago and the store was already set up for Black Friday. None of the sales were going yet, but all of the stock was there. Yeah, it does seem like retailers are a bit antsy to get things going with holiday sales. And there's been a lot of talk that there's a bit of surplus when it comes to supply at many of these retailers, and they're a little concerned they won't be able to sell through all of it. Apparently there was a lot of ordering going on because typically when you do your holiday orders, you will do them, I'm not even kidding, 6 or 7 months ahead of time. And there was more demand then than there is now for a lot of this stuff. So it sounds like they're ready to go like anytime now. And that's why we're starting to see some of these sales pop up a bit early online and even in store. Although I've been getting used to walking into a Walmart or wherever in October and they already have Christmas trees up. So maybe it's always been this way. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was Nintendo's fiscal year report for Q2, them even revising sales down for the Switch going into 2023. Do you think they have some plans maybe for new hardware or revision or maybe even a change in pricing? And then also, what about that Horizon MMORPG? Is that something you'd be interested in checking out? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.